Hi, I'm Amy Saffell, and welcome to the show today. We are talking with Alicia Searcy, the Executive Director of Fashion is for Everybody, and we're going to talk a little bit today about what she is doing and about inclusive fashion. So thanks for joining me.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about your backstory, how you got into fashion, and how that kind of influenced your early life, and how that got to where you are now.
That's a really long story, so I'll give you the short version of it. When I was little, my mother was a model, and she was good at sewing. So we used to kind of make outfits that, she made outfits that matched for me. But she was never very happy with my body and my body shape and size. So after a while, I just kind of got discouraged and gave up on fashion for a long time. And I found that when I went out with my friends or whoever I was out with, people wouldn't really talk to me because I was in a wheelchair. They assumed that I was mentally disabled and couldn't speak for myself, and they talked to my friends instead for me. And I thought that is really odd. It not only is it odd, it's depressing. So I decided to clean myself up a little bit and try and make an effort and make a good appearance. And the more I did it, the more positively people responded to me. So that was kind of my start in this. Was just kind of to have a little bit of self-esteem. From there, it's gone into obviously just a love of fashion, and a love of fashion in a body that is not sample size, is an odd shape. I'm short. I'm sitting in a chair, so my torso is shortened. I have a laundry list of uh, defects, quote unquote, that most women have. Um, but it really is about the journey and how I can be, I can use this as my language. Fashion is a language that can tell people who you are without you having to open your mouth, and that's what I have used it for.
That's interesting. So you got a little bit older and into fashion and into kind of trying to make that more of a career, kind of. So you started the Fashionista blog, and so tell us a little bit about that, and tell us kind of how you came up with that name, because I know, but I think some people don't know, and then how that transitioned into Fashion is for Everybody, and then the Boundless Fashion Show.
Well, I started fashion blogging after the flood of 2010 because I lost most of my clothes. And actually, it's kind of okay because they weren't that hot. They were okay. I was trying at that point, but they were just okay. I started blogging because I noticed people that were not necessarily model material looking very discouraged and looking like they had given up on themselves too. And I thought, well, I should kind of show people that it's possible if you have a disability or a non-sample size body that you can look good, you can be fashionable. And I also want to focus on doing that in my own community of Nashville. So the blog is called Fashionista, and it's short. It's a take on tongue-in-cheek fashionista. It's spastic fashionista. It's that because I have cerebral palsy, so obviously I'm spastic. And so I did that for. I still have it on Instagram, really, but I did that for maybe 3 or 4 years, and then I was sitting in Fashion Week about 3 years ago, and it was at the same venue where we've had the show for the past 2 years, Studio 615. And it was really beautifully done. And I just had the thought of why can't I do something like this for people of all ages, of all sizes, all abilities? And that kind of got, in my head. I thought, well, we'll do that someday. I'll do that someday. And then when David Bowie died, I realized I may not have a someday. It was just kind of a wake-up call for me. It resonated with me because he was always kind of the champion of people who are different and can't fit in or don't want to fit in. So that's kind of where the organization, Fashion is for Everybody, came from. And from there, we put on our first show 3 years ago, and it really was meant to be a one-off thing. It was something that we just kind of threw together. We got the support of local designers. It was fantastic, and we had no clue what we were doing at all. And when we were done, people were like, "This is great. When's the next one?" And I thought, okay, so we have to
Struck a
take
chord,
this somewhere,
yeah.
right?
So when you first started, was the fashion world receptive to, or did they even realize that it was an issue?
A lot of them didn't realize that it was an issue, really. I think most of them have been pretty receptive, but you have to remember that I kind of nurtured these relationships for a while. If you will sit and talk to people, you'll be surprised at how open they can be, especially if you're interested in the things that they are creating, because you're expressing an interest in their art. And fashion is art. It really is. It's wearable art. We have to live in it every day. So it's necessary art. Yeah, I think they were receptive for the most part. There have been a few people that have not wanted to prefer exclusivity and not inclusivity, but that's okay. I mean, we can have the highly editorial artistic fashion show that's nothing but size 0 models. That's okay. I just think that we should also have ones like we do.
We have both.
Yeah, exactly.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So when you created the show, what made you want to have it be people with and without disabilities or of all sizes rather than just people with disabilities? Because you have in the show, you've got people that have walked runways before and are longtime models alongside people that this is their first time and they have a disability and they never thought that they were going to do it before. So what made you want it to be both sides?
We live in a world where everyone lives in this world together. We don't live in this little group over here and this little group over here. We live all together in the same world. So our runway should be a reflection of the world. And the world is made up of people like you and me. It's made up of people that are younger than us, older than us, bigger, smaller, taller, shorter. Well, maybe not much shorter than me, but you know.
I'm shorter than you, so
Oh, well.
it's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. Okay, that's one. We live in a world together. And so it was important to me that this be seen as you get the same respect that the model that has walked 4 runways or 10 runways or 40 gets on that runway. That was what was important to me.
Right. So I was at this year's show and I was at 2 years ago, so I missed the second one, but it's been going on for 3 years now, and it was incredible this year. I think you have a couple of designers that had been there before, and a couple of ones that weren't at the first one at least. And so, talk a little bit about the process of getting both the designers on board and how you pick the designers and all of that, and then talk a little bit about the models and how you pick them, and just some of your favorite moments from this year's show.
Yeah. Well, the designers are by invitation. I ask a designer that I think would be a good fit for us, and that's really, most people here in Nashville are a good fit for us. I ask them, would you be interested in doing this show? And really, honestly, I've only ever gotten one no of the people that I have asked. As far as the models go, I also kind of handpick those, and we get them from several different places. Our pro models we get from Tribe because they're a sponsor, and Sherry's been wonderful to us. We have a good relationship with them, and she gives us the best of the best, but I get to pick those too. She gives us an open call, and I get to pick who I want. I also kind of collect people. Like at the gym, I found one model. Mm-hmm. At the eye doctor, I found another model. It's just here and there
Your eyes
where
are
I say,
open.
I think you would be good. And usually they're really excited to do it. The wonderful thing about it is what it does to these people after the process. It really changes them. And that goes for designers too. They see this in a whole different light. They see themselves differently, they see fashion differently, and they see the way that these things fit together totally differently.
And I'm sure that there are certain concerns that people didn't realize. Well, someone in a wheelchair, this is not going to work for them, and so how can I? Maybe they think afterwards, how can I design this differently to be more
Absolutely.
inclusive?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
been great. Well, one of my favorite moments I think from the show was the any old iron, the sequence, and your wonderful ending with the sequence and the cape and all of that. Is there any thing that stands out this year for you? Obviously, that would stand out for you.
That would
Yeah.
probably stand out pretty prominently. The thing that I really enjoy, this is our third year in. Okay, so we kind of know what we're doing and we know what to expect. What I enjoy is watching people be transformed. I enjoy what I call that aha moment when you see somebody, and this year it was a little girl that had not been there before, and I don't think she'd ever had her hair and makeup done. And she has CP, she uses an electric chair. And she had her makeup done, and she was terrified. I said, "You can stay with me. I'll stay with you while we do hair and makeup." By the time she got to hair and got her hair, she said, "Ah, I look beautiful. I've never seen myself like this. I've never seen anything like this." So that was her aha moment. That was her, I can be beautiful if I choose to be. This is an option now. This is a part of her that she can access.
That's
So,
incredible.
so these things are what, they're what make me want to do this.
And I know by people in the audience seeing that too, whether or not they have a disability or not, I think that people that are able-bodied sometimes don't see themselves as beautiful, don't see them as being able to participate in fashion, and I think that that really changes everybody that sees that as well.
Some of the worst critics are the models themselves. They self criticize themselves, and they are in an environment now where they get to kind of mentor if they choose to, or just be free to be themselves. I don't. I don't want perfection because perfection doesn't exist. It's unattainable. You may have a small window where somebody likes what you're doing, but perfection in fashion does not exist. So you have to adapt things to you, whether you're disabled or whether you're plus size or whether you're just getting older and your body is changing. These things matter. And when you can get people to connect with that concept, you've really, I think, done them a service.
So, have you ever felt like you yourself, as an adult, I know you felt like this maybe as a kid, felt like you were restricted in fashion, and how do you overcome that? Maybe what are some of your tips in your everyday life for someone with a disability or just a non-traditional body size that you use in your everyday life that would be tips that somebody else could use?
I think what I would tell people is, first of all, be honest about what you look like, because you can't maximize your good stuff if you don't know what it is, and you can't cover up the stuff that's not so good if you don't know what that is either. You have to be honest about who you are and what you look like. You can get good clothes anywhere from Goodwill to any old iron, okay, and everywhere in between. So budget doesn't necessarily have to be an issue if you're tenacious. You have to have a good tailor. I don't care who you are. There is no such thing as an off-the-rack body, not even the models that walk Fashion Week. They have to be fitted, and they get taped in and pinned in and all that kind of stuff. Um, I also think it's important that people find their style and ignore trends. I know that that makes me very unpopular with mass marketing big stores. It's okay to have some trends, but if all you do is follow trends, they change now every 2 weeks. So you're
Wow,
going to go broke.
absolutely.
And you're probably not going to look good because a trend doesn't take into account your own body.
Absolutely.
So those are probably my main tips.
Yeah.
The other one is when you look good, you tend to feel good. So it's worth the time and the trouble to go ahead and do it. If you need your clothes modified because you're in a chair, there are some adaptive clothing companies. There are not enough of them. So again, a good tailor is invaluable. And something that we do once a year is we give out an award, a pattern endowment, to a designer to have them keep in their shop a pattern that is for a wheelchair person, an adaptive clothing pattern. So someone can come in, order that pattern, and have that garment made.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. I think people don't realize sometimes the connection between how you feel, how you look, and how you feel, and how you act, and that it all plays together.
It
But
does. It
definitely
really
does.
does.
So this is the third year, and how have you seen the fashion industry change since you started Boundless, and just overall, have you seen change and advancement?
I can only speak on the local level at this point because that's where we have focused our energy. And the designers are much more open to, it's not even change, they're open to adaptability. They want to be able to adapt what they do and be more size inclusive because it's a good, it makes financial sense for them to be size inclusive. They also take into account things that we talked about that are not necessarily winners for chairs, like ball gowns are a bad idea when you're pushing your chair because you're going to ruin it. This is not something that people necessarily think about
Right.
unless you're dealing with someone who is seated. So I've seen them make modifications and make tweaks here and there and make more inclusive choices and decisions
That's great.
based on what we do.
It's great that you're seeing a change because it's what everybody needs.
It is.
Mm. So, what is your hope for the future in your role in fashion and then just the fashion industry in general?
Well, I hope I can do this till I drop because I really think that even though I started late in life, I think this is kind of my calling. And I think that not only is it fun for me, it's actually a lot of work too. And I want to acknowledge that I cannot do this alone. There's no way. There is an army of people behind me helping, and they're helping a lot. but I think I would like to continue to do this for as long as I can. I'd like to see this idea become something that is so commonplace that I don't have to do this anymore. I will be just a part of the mainstream. I want this idea to be mainstream. That's my hope.
That's great. So my last question is, what would you say your definition of beautiful is? I think that society says one thing, but what would you say your definition of beautiful is?
A beautiful person is a person that acknowledges who they are, accepts who they are. And really, a beautiful person is anyone when they are happy with themselves. And fashion can kind of help show that. I think that that's the most succinct definition I could come up with. I was trying to think of if I can think of anything that's the opposite of that. And like the opposite of that is despair. And despair is when you give up and you're despondent and you just don't see any hope. And I think that when people can connect with you, which ultimately is why we do this. We do this, we wear this stuff so somebody can come up and talk to me and pay attention to me and tell me, oh, I like your hair. Oh, I love those jeans. You know, then we can have a conversation. Or, oh, you look so put together. Well, okay, so now you know I can talk and we can talk about stuff. The ultimate aim here is connection. And connection happens through the communication that you start with what you're wearing.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And I think that we've all learned a lot about inclusive fashion and about Fashion is for Everybody. And I hope that everyone will look online for Fashion is for Everybody and look for next year's Boundless fashion show. So thank you, and have a great day.
Thanks a lot.